This is the first of two videos introducing you to the textual analysis essay assignment. This is one of the two big essays for this class. You will have to choose one of these two big essays to include in your GE portfolio as well. So these are ones to really dig into. Textual analysis. First, let's talk about what the word text means. I know when I use that word, what pops into your mind first is the thing you do with your thumbs on your phone, probably. But in an academic setting, a text is anything created by a human being which is intended to convey meaning. Human beings have thoughts and feelings to express any way that we choose to do that, whether it's through song or art or poetry or drawing with chalk on the sidewalk. Any of those things can be considered a text. For this essay, you're going to look at one of those texts in detail. You can see how this is one of the most commonly assigned types of essays in college. It requires you to look at the background of the text because texts are not created in a vacuum. When, where was it created? Who created it? What were they trying to say when they created this text? This might involve cultural issues, historical periods, any of those kinds of things. You will need to discuss whatever background is necessary to help your readers understand the text you've chosen. You do get to choose the text that you want to talk about in this essay. I'm going to give you some suggestions for possible texts, but those are not requirements. If there's something else you want to discuss, you certainly have that option. The thing that I would want you to be a little bit careful about is that you are going to need to have sources that talk about this text or that look at those kinds of background issues. So things that are more recently created, sometimes it's harder to find academic information that comments on that text. That's my only caveat. If there's some song that came out last week that you really think is meaningful and really deep, well, that might be okay, but it might be harder to find good, solid academic discussion. So in terms of the requirements of a textual analysis essay, there are three basic parts to it. I'm not saying these are the three sections of the essay, but every textual analysis must include description of the text, description of the context, and discussion of the implications. Why does this matter? Why is this text important? That's implications. Context, we said, that's the background information. When, where, who created it, what did they want to say? And what are other people saying about it? This goes back to implications. Please take note that this is not an argument essay in a traditional sense. You're not presenting this and taking a stand on it. Instead, your purpose is to introduce your text to your readers. So if they have never heard it, seen it, they don't know anything about it, after they read your essay, they can feel like they understand what the text looks like, sounds like, and they have some idea why people care about it. Why are people arguing about it? In terms of the details, the specifications, you're going to end up writing a 5 to 6 page paper. It is going to be double-spaced 12-point font, Times New Roman, and you are going to need 4 sources. This is 4 sources in addition to your primary text. These sources can come from the textbook. I would recommend you look at the library. You do need at least one academic source, one that is considered peer-reviewed. Please note that dictionaries and encyclopedias don't count toward the 4. If there's something that you feel like you need to define, you can use an encyclopedia and a dictionary. I'm not saying you can't use them, but they don't officially count as sources for this essay. Just like your text isn't a source for this essay. So, what are some possible texts? Some things that you can look at. You have a choice, everything from movies to books to works of art to TV shows. Under movies, there's a wide variety. Everything from An Inconvenient Truth, the documentary about global warming, to Avatar that looks at environmental issues and the treatment of indigenous people, to The Interview, the silly one about North Korea, to Disney things like Little Mermaid, Pocahontas, or Mulan is another favorite. Any of these will work as a text that you then look into more deeply. Works of art, I've only listed 4 here. Obviously, there's many more possibilities. We will actually look at 2 of these in more depth in the second video about the textual analysis essay when I talk about the requirements of the genre in more detail. What's the form and format of the essay supposed to look like? Talk about the Martin Luther King Jr. statue there, and we'll talk about Washington crossing the Delaware. But any of these work. Other possible texts, there are lots of books. I know that you've read way more of these than just the ones listed here, but these are ones that I know work well because there are messages. That's the one thing that you have to look for. Well, another thing you have to look for when you're choosing a text. It does need to be something that was intended to convey some sort of a meaning, which, not to pick on Nicholas Sparks, but I'm sorry. Most of his movies, it's just a romance thing. There's no deep message there. There's different songs, country songs. They're just fun. I mean, Red Solo Cup, don't think there's any deep message behind that. It's not going to be very easy to write about that. On the other hand, Huckleberry Finn, you have questions of race and being an orphan and friendship. To Kill a Mockingbird, you've got all kinds of questions about how to treat people who aren't like us. If you want to look at TV shows, the warning about TV shows is that many of them, while you have one set of characters, those characters go on for a long time. So with some TV shows like Dexter, you might be looking more at the morality. Can you be a good guy if you're killing people? Even if you're only killing bad people, can you be a good guy? With other things like The Simpsons, you're probably going to want to narrow it down and look at one particular character or maybe even one particular episode. Their Mary Poppins parody, they look at what it means to be American. They look at whether or not, the quality of childcare. Those kinds of things are in that one episode. You'd focus on a single episode there. Doctor Who, you might look at the particular character, like the character of Doctor Who. If you're basically immortal, what should you spend your time doing? So, those are possible texts, like I said. You can choose other texts with a couple of caveats. Will there be sources? Before you commit yourself to a particular text, I would recommend that you search in the library, you seek if you can find intelligent discussion about the text you're interested in. Look for that. Look at ways that you can focus it down and think about introducing your text to your audience. That's it for this video. Look for the next one that talks about form and format and the requirements of the genre.